Hi, today's tutorial is going to be about OpenAI and how can you use it on your project to process data. This will save you quite a few lines of code, but for that you are going to need to have an account and you'll need to interact with OpenAI API. While this can be costly, OpenAI offers you some free credits when you create your account. You can then use those to bring the technology used on ChatGPT to your own project. OpenAI GPT is a type of large language model that is a neural network trained with more than 300 billion words. It's an artificial intelligence model that is able to understand our language and tries to predict what would be a good completion to what it's written. Now, this is important for our tutorial today. When we talk about completion, it doesn't necessarily mean that it does the same that, for example, our smartphone does with autocorrect. GPT, for example, is trained with conversations, interactions between different persons, and questions and answers from all over the internet. So not only can it predict what would make sense on the middle of a sentence, it can also predict interactions between two entities, thus allows you to use it as a conversation partner. This is going to be important for our use case where we are going to try to use a similar model to the one that runs ChatGPT, that is offered by OpenAI, to solve a problem. For that, we generate our prompt that we'll send to the OpenAI servers in order for the LLM model for the GPT to predict the output. The main part of this implementation, it's going to be the training that we do to the AI in order for it to shape its response based on our project goals. For that, we are going to give him some sentences with the instructions that we need before we actually give it the user input that we will later process. More specifically, on this tutorial, we will create a tool capable of creating a custom map based on a prompt of the user. We will first then guide GPT with instructions on how to process the user input and how to format the output. This is mainly going to be done through the functions of the OpenAI API, but let's look on the diagram for more detail. First, we generate on our code the GPT instructions to align the model with the objectives of the project. Then, we gather the user input and then sanitize it in order to check if it is actually meaningful data and avoid unwanted behavior. Then, we receive the GPT output, check if everything is correct, if not, correct any mistakes that we found, and then use that as an input for our map creating function that will then generate the final result. So, with the project explained, let us then start coding. Okay, so let's get to the code. We are going to use two packages. The first one is going to be the OpenAI that has the API to OpenAI, and then GMT, that is our package for drawing maps. So the objective here is to gather the input from the user, transform that input in a function parameter, and then from that function parameter, we are going to get our map. So for that, let's first start our connection to the OpenAI API, and for that, we are going to need our API key. Now, the API key, it's something that you can get from the OpenAI website. So go over to platform.openai.com, create your account, and then you have for free, if I'm not mistaken, it's $5 of usage that you can use on your projects for free. And then after you create your account, you go to View API Keys, you create a new secret key, give it a name, and then you got your API key. You can only see this once, so be sure to save it. Done. And then you can copy here as a string. Now, in terms of models, if you are using OpenAI GPT for free, you only have access to GPT 3.5. If you are one of the paying customers, you already can use GPT 4. For now, we are only going to use GPT 3.5. And let's prepare something for the GPT. We are going to begin our prompt with the instructions. Now, the way that I'm going to write instructions is going to be similar to a way that you would talk to a colleague. for example. So GPT is a large language model and it's trained on, well, a lot of interactions between persons. So you can talk with it like you will talk with a colleague. So what I'm going to ask is, so you are supporting me on selecting all the countries that match the prompt that I will ask you next. This prompt, of course, is going to be our user input. Now, the list needs to be in a certain format. That is the format that is used here for GMT. It's a 2-letter code for each country. I don't know the exact name, but I can quickly search that. So the list should be comma separated. That's how the function works, with the names being described in the format. Now I need to check. So it's 2 char ISO country codes. That's it. ISO 31661 alpha 2. Perfect. And this should be enough. Now, of course, it's not going to be a guarantee that the model is going to fully understand what it needs to do. But if it doesn't, we'll return back to these instructions and we'll change it accordingly. So it's going to be kind of a prompt engineering here, where the prompt needs to be slightly tuned till the model does what we need it to do. Now, for the user input, I'm just going to use a read line here. Of course, a little bit more sanitized to avoid any issues. So waiting input true, it's going to be our waiting input variable. I'm going to initialize the user input here as an empty string. And while I'm waiting for input, I'm going to print the prompt to the user now. The countries that you want to be part of the map. Now I'm going to put a limitation here to 100 chars. Why? Otherwise, we start having a pretty big prompt, and as I've told you before, every API call is paid, and you don't want the user to just write hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of chars here and make you pay a large sum for that API call. So you want to limit it. And then the user input. It's going to be a read line. And the limitation that we have imposed, that is, if the length of the user input is lower than 2, then we don't want it. But if it is at least 2 and lower than 100, we are good to go. Okay. That's correct. So if this is the case, I'm no longer waiting for an input. Let's quickly give it a try here. Just going to copy and paste. 1 letter, it's an error. Oh, okay. Here is the issue. It was missing a parenthesis here on the length. Okay, should be fine now. It is perfect. Now, what's going to be our prompt to GPT? So, for example, countries that border Switzerland. Okay, let's see. Let's see if GPT can comprehend this and give us a list of countries in the way that we have asked, of course. Now, the API call. So our prompt to the GPT is going to be the instructions that I've written before. Then our user input. It's going to be added after that. Then I'm also going to add 2 points here. Well, trying to induce GPT to give the answer after this character. Now, the response. I'm going to create a shot. This is a function from the OpenAI library. Our secret key. The model. Then a dictionary with the rule. In this case, it's user. And the content is going to be the prompt. Okay. Hopefully it can call. Okay. And exactly what's needed. Perfect. The only thing that is wrong, I'm going to call this later, but anyhow, the countries are Austria, Germany, France, Italy, and Liechtenstein. It's correct. It's exactly what we wanted. The only thing, it's this space over here. The function doesn't accept space, but it's something that we can do quickly. Now, the response, it's on choices content. So we need to get it first. So my GPT response, it's going to be response, then choices, then the first one. Okay, and then is message. Okay. Message. Okay, then content. And we got our response. Okay, perfect. Now, let's remove the space over here. So the countries selected are going to be the GPT response, where I replace the spaces with nothing, and this should work, hopefully. Okay, GPT response. Yep, no spaces. Now, I can use my function. The function is going to be used from the package GMT for my output. An output for that, I'm going to use the function coast to create a map. In this case, a world map. Minus 90 to 90. Then need to start with the colors here. Blue. One. And the really important part, it's here, where I select the countries. Now the country is going to be equal to my list of countries that I have gathered from GPT, and I want the color of those countries to be red. True. Okay, I think all it's ready now. We can go ahead and create a map. And exactly, it's all the countries that bother Switzerland. It's, yeah, perfect. No issues whatsoever. Let's try another prompt here. Now it's going to be countries on North Africa. Let's see if GPT can handle it. Okay, you see the issue here. Let's see the response. So the countries in North Africa described in ISO and so on. Now, it's not giving me actually just the countries. It's giving me a lot of introduction and also some extra information as well. Well, that I actually cannot use because I need to pick up this data and put it on our coast function. So I need to better explain to GPT what I actually want. So I need it to be slightly more formed with some extra instructions. So I'm going to try to give an example. This is usually good for prompt engineering. So for example, if I ask the countries from South America, you will list like the following. Now guys, forgive me if I have any orthography error. I'm just doing this as I write. So it could be like I miswrote something here. Anyhow, this is going to be our example. And so on. So yeah, if it is South America, please give me Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and so on. Hopefully this so on doesn't affect the response. But the example is here. This is the most critical part for the large language model. Hopefully this is going to be enough. If it is not enough, then we can create further detail as well. It's not an issue. We can always refine our prompt. Then the user input, it's countries on North Africa. Then the API call. Perfect. Yes, now we got only the response and not the introduction and also the extra information that we were getting before. So it seems like it worked. Let's give a look to the map. There you go. Yes, only the countries on North Africa. Perfect. Now, we have seen that GPT can understand everything related to geography. Well, till our last test, of course. Maybe we found another issue. Let me try another input here. Countries on Arabia Peninsula. Okay, let's see if he can handle it correctly. So I want all the countries on the Arabia Peninsula. Okay, not too shabby. It's around the Arabia Peninsula. Not bad, not bad. Okay, so we have tested right now geography. Let's see if he can do measurements. So what I'm going to do is ask him to give me countries. So countries that can be reached by car, by driving maximum 1,000 kilometers from Paris. Okay, let's see if we can handle it. It's going to require some calculations here. Okay, perfect. No, it seems like it's correct. Yeah, that doesn't show France. It should, I would imagine. But the other countries are the neighborhoods with at least 1,000 kilometers away from Paris. It seems okay. It seems okay. Good. So it can do distances as well. And now let's see population. Let's see if we can handle demography here. Let's try to ask, so countries with a population higher than 1 billion. Okay, this is a simple prompt. And perfect, exactly. It's China and India. Correct, okay. So demography works as well. Next, so let's try economy. Let's see if we can understand as well economy problems. So I want the top 5 oil exporters. Yeah, it seems correct. It's 5 countries. Yeah, US, Russia, Canada, and then Iraq and Arabia. Perfect. So we did understand that. Now, another one could be... let me think of something else. Top 10 coffee producers. I actually don't know a lot of countries that produce coffee, but at least Brazil should be there. Let's give it a look. And it is Brazil. And a lot of countries here on South America and also Central America. I mean, it's feasible. It looks pretty good. Okay. So guys, we have seen how GPT can be used to manage user inputs, so transform those user inputs in something that is useful for us, that can be used directly on our code. And I'm using a fraction of the code that I would be using if I would need to try to understand the input from the user, any type of input, and use that on my map function. So it worked incredibly well. Of course, the knowledge of GPT is not perfect, so maybe there are some countries there that do not exactly fit the prompt that we've given it, but it looks pretty good, and it's only going to improve with time. I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. Hopefully this tutorial is going to be helpful for your projects as well, and we'll see you again on the next one.